Hey guys, welcome to another episode on TFBTV. Today I'm at the Defense Services Museum in Naypitaw, Myanmar, or formerly Burma. Thank you very much for the museum and the Defense Services Museum for allowing me and TFBTV to film inside the museum. We got some really amazing shots, really great footage. Burmese small arms are somewhat of an oddity or curiosity. If you know, there's really not much out there written, such as, you know, these two, well, first of all, these two Burmese carbine G3s, but in addition, this Burmese Enfield grenade launcher that we'll talk about more in the episode. Anyways, thanks guys for listening in. I really want to thank Ventura Munitions for helping support our channel, and I hope you enjoy the episode on Burmese small arms. So to tell the story of Burmese small arms development, we really have to start with the Burmese Independence Army that began shortly after the Second World War and really had its foundations in the Second World War with Boyok Aung San, often considered the father of the Burmese nation. Now, the BIA, or the Burma Independence Army, was actually trained by the Imperial Japanese Army during the Second World War, but there was a lot of British influence after the war in terms of surplus supplies and military equipment. Thus, you see all sorts of examples of Japanese handguns, Japanese knee mortars, to include British small arms such as the Enfield No. 4. We see Stens, we see a lot of Brens, we see a lot of the small arms in use by both sides during the war because, frankly, this was some of the cheapest material that was available after the Second World War. Much of this material actually still remains in service with the Burmese military through the Burmese police force, which we see examples of such rifles as the Enfield still in use today. So Burmese small arms really take a turn for the better when the TZ-45 is actually imported into Myanmar and is actually produced as the BA-52, standing for Burma Army 1952, adopted in 1952. This was a locally produced licensed variant of the Italian TZ-45, which didn't really see that much success in Europe, but it saw much success within Burma. Now, the BA-52 was an open bolt submachine gun with a selector switch that is a part of the trigger housing group. On many of the Italian versions, we see this as a sort of dial selector that goes back and forth, but on the Burmese versions, we actually have a cross-bolt selector that is actually pushed from left to right. The BA-52 was in use with the Tatmadaw up until the early 2000s, when we actually see the transition of the BA-52 into Burmese police hands, which we still see examples of the BA-52 being used by the Burmese police even until today. Our next step after the BA-52 is the main service rifle of the Burmese Army. This is where we see the bulk of Burmese production, which would take it into the 1990s and even the 2000s. So a company called Fritz Werner, which was a West German sort of dealer slash broker, actually brokered deals between Heckler & Koch and Rheinmetall and actually brought the G3 series of rifles from H&K and the MG3 series of GPMGs from Rheinmetall to Burma in the 1960s. Licensed production begins of the G3 series rifles in the early 60s, of which there are 4 major variants. In 1963, we have the adoption of the BA-63, the Burma Army 1963, and this is essentially a standard G3 service rifle in 7.62 by 5.1mm NATO. The rifle is adopted by the Burma Army and is in use until the mid-1990s, where it is then replaced by the MA-11 series of rifles. Some interesting characteristics of the BA-63 is that early variants actually had the German SEF markings on the trigger housing groups. On the right side, we have markings in Burmese, illustrating that it is a Burmese defense product. And the rear sights have been changed from the German diopter sights to a simple flip-up 300-meter, 100-meter rear sight. In addition, we also see variants made with wooden furniture and polymer furniture throughout its production years. Moving on from the BA-63, we have the BA-64, which a number of commenters appear to incorrectly have labeled it as the G4. We see this in publications about Burma in the 1990s and early 2000s, and the G4 designation doesn't really go away. It's not quite clear where this comes from, because on the firearms themselves, they're actually marked BA-64. This stands for Burma Army 1964, when it was adopted. The BA-64 is unique in that it has an upturned charging handle. It has bipods that actually collapse to the rear. In addition, it has a carrying handle that can be switched from the left side to the right side. It has a copy of a flip-up Enfield ladder sight, which can be adjusted for various ranges going from top to bottom. In addition, some variants actually have perforated metal handguards. Moving on from the 63, we then move into the BA-72. The Burmese Army is unique in that they actually have a carbine variant, or at least a shorter variant, of their G3 models called the BA-72 Burma Army 1972. Practically the only thing different about this compared to the others was that it had a shorter barrel and shorter handguards. We tend to see the BA-72 in use with various elements of the Tatmadaw, such as female soldiers, smaller statured soldiers, in addition to folks like guys that needed a much more shorter rifle overall, but couldn't use the earlier BA-52 submachine gun. And finally, the last of the BA series is actually the BA-100. Currently, we actually don't have any known photographs of the BA-100, but we do know that it was a designated marksman's rifle, and we do know that Burmese light infantry battalions were actually TO'd a squad of snipers at the battalion HQ level for a number of decades. The BA-100 was simply a BA-63, probably with a better fitted barrel and probably using match-grade ammunition, in addition to being fitted with a optic on top of it. One final note about all the G3 series of rifles is that they actually continue to see service within Burmese police forces today. So at the same time this relationship with H&K through Fitz Vernon was going on, we also had the Rheinmetall side of this, which was the MG3 portion. The MG3 was adopted in roughly the same amount of time, about the 1960s, and we have production of the MG3 that actually continues today. Within current nomenclature, the MG3 is actually labeled as the MA-15, or the Myanmar Army 15. These designations, such as Myanmar Army 15, in addition to MA-11, MA-12, actually changed in the later 1990s when the older BA, and then followed by the year it was adopted, was actually dropped in favor of a numerically progressive numbering system. There's another firearm that saw some service within the Burmese Army in the 1990s, and that was actually the BA-93 launcher. This is interesting because it was actually built off of surplus Lee Enfield No. 4 stocks and receivers that were actually chopped in a number of places, and then an actual rifle grenade launcher was attached to the chamber, in addition to a sheet metal buttstock which was attached to a tube from the rear of the rifle. It used a G3 pistol grip, and it fired the BA-92 41mm rifle grenade. Interesting point about the rifle grenades is that the rifle grenades actually see service throughout the G3 series of rifles in previous times and continue to see service with the MA-1, MA-3, and MA-4 series of infantry rifles that is currently in service with the Burmese military. One final design point here is the Burmese Uzi. So in the early 1990s, development began on producing a Burmese variant of the Uzi from Israel. Now, there were two variants of this made. There was the BA-93 and the BA-94. The BA-93 is much less successful as the BA-94, continue in service with the Tatmadaw today as the MA-13. The BA-94 doesn't see much service with the Tatmadaw, but it does see much service with the Burmese police forces, where it continues to see service today as an actively issued 9mm submachine gun. There are three variants of the BA-94. There is a full stock variant, there's a collapsing variant similar to the Uzi, and there's also a fold in stock variant where the stock actually folds to the right side of the submachine gun. The biggest difference between the BA-94 and the BA-93 is the location of the charging handle. On the BA-93, it is a classic Uzi style charging handle where the charging handle is actually on top of the submachine gun and you actually look through it as you're aiming through the sights. However, on the BA-94, the charging handle is actually on the left side of the submachine gun and you have to cock it with your left hand. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. We really appreciate the viewership. If you enjoyed this video, we might be able to go after experimental Burmese small arms in the next video that we produce at TFBTV.